All right, this will be a pretty short one. Remember, inventory profits are the difference between using cost of goods sold when we're at our current replacement cost. That's one way of valuing inventory. Okay. What I would have to go and pay to replace the inventory I sold today, right? How much are they charging for it in the market right now? And looking at that cost of goods sold as opposed to the cost of goods sold, that is our cost flow method. Because that, the current replacement cost is not the default valuation for any cost flow method. And when I talk about cost flow method, I hope you understand, I mean LIFO, FIFO, average cost. So there's inventory profits for any single one of these cost flow methods. They happen to be lowest for LIFO because LIFO assigns the most recent inventory costs as those items sold, and the most recent costs are likely to be close to or at CRC, but they all have potential for inventory profit. Now, it's asking us to calculate the inventory profits that arose from LIFO liquidation. And well, what does LIFO liquidation mean? It means that our most current purchases were not always the ones we sold. So, for example, we sold 300 units here. It stripped out not just our most current purchases, but the ones before that. And then it finally even dipped into beginning inventory. So there was LIFO liquidation, which means we were hitting very, much older price points using a LIFO system. And LIFO liquidation is not desirable in an accounting system because if you're using LIFO, you're trying to report high cost of goods sold. By liquidating layers, you're usually dipping into lower prices, right? So we're going to assess how much profit was recorded by determining how much higher cost of goods sold would have been if we had sold at $14. That's the idea. And to get our cost of goods sold, we consider the total number of units we sold, which is 500. And and we can put them all together because we're only looking at one price point, $14, the current replacement cost, current market price. And that comes to 7,000. So if we had sold $14 and reported that as our COGS, this would be what we would record as COGS. That's under the current replacement cost. Now we have COGS from LIFO already. We have 6,052.50. That was our LIFO COGS. And if that's our assumed cost method for this calculation, then that's what we would record. 6,052.50. So clearly our answer to number one affects how we're going to calculate this when we're comparing it against LIFO COGS. $947.50 of pre-tax inventory profit. Right? Because if we were able to sell at this, we would have increased cost of goods sold by that amount and then had some tax shelter. But right, we had a little bit of an issue with our LIFO liquidation.